Hey, welcome to the Hired AV podcast. My name is Joe Way, and I am your host. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. It's a good day today. It's a really good day. Why is that? Because March Madness is starting, and I have great peeps on the show. Those two amazing things. As you all kind of know, we were over at ISE, not too long ago. Actually it was like 2 months ago already, and with some great changes and things happening in our industry, we have a great partner on today to really talk. We're going to talk about some trends. We're going to talk about kind of the hybrid rooms. We're going to talk about where things are going with high flex learning and all of that stuff. Because I really think we're in a transitional time here in our industry. And this is where we want to have these conversations. Also, perfect prep as we're getting ready for our summers and we're getting ready for InfoComm and we're getting ready for kind of thinking ahead of what this next phase will look like. So happy to have just an incredible person here on the show. And I know I always pretend like you don't know who it is, but you actually can read the title and you know who it is. But anyway, Jay, welcome to the show. Please tell people who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much, and excited to be here. And yeah, at Logitech, I am a product manager, and I lead education focused AV strategy, working closely with institutions to understand challenges and help deliver solutions that drive engagement and IT efficiency.
Awesome. So, you and I, so we saw each other at ISE, and I think the biggest hit, and this came across on our Best of ISE episode too, was the connected classroom, right? That connected classroom, I think, is important. And what was the whole idea of that? And, where did you, so I'm going to already break my rules. What behind asking multiple part questions, but what was kind of the purpose there? But also, then what were your customers saying when they came to see you over there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great concept that came up. It was a partnership with ISC and some other partners that I'm going to forget right now, which is terrible. But the goal and the idea behind it was to try to take all of these various technologies out there in the market today and bring them all together to make sort of a classroom environment. And that's not just for higher ed. It was also a little bit of K through 12 focus as well. But the idea was to take all these different technologies, bring them all together, and show how it can work seamlessly. So you can bring in all these different product types and make it applicable for whatever your lecture style may be. And I think it was a really cool concept. It was really interesting. Even some of it was stuff we were learning on the fly, right? I mean, it was like as we had pulled all these things together and we wanted to bring in more partners, putting that stuff in there, it was a really interesting thing to put together. And we saw a lot of really valuable insights from how things like Zoom and Teams can leverage a lot of these technologies and products and make a real seamless environment. And again, to answer your second question, I think while we were there, and we had a lot of people come through that booth, which was shocking because it was definitely more towards the end of the building. So when I first got there, I kind of expected it to be a ghost town. I mean, it was odd. It was a really nice space and it was laid out really well. And to my surprise, there was just constant traffic throughout. And we had a lot of schools come through. We had a lot of decision makers. We had a lot of teachers, every different types. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things that they kept coming through was just trying to figure out how they take their more traditional approach to education and how they make it work in this sort of changing environment, right? So as students are, kind of doing this flexible learning or high flex environment, how do they continue to do what they're comfortable doing, but do it over Zoom and Teams and Meets and all these other different platforms? How do they leverage visualizers? How do they do a whiteboard experience that is that's impactful for those that are in class? How do they make it just as impactful for students that are logging in remotely or reviewing this after the fact as sort of a refresher? So that was a lot of what we heard going through there. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, no, I love that, and you made me think about something here. Is the difference in people are coming in and coming to talk to you. Schools are different, and we say this in the back, kind of the behind the scenes higher ed people. Is we have so many different types of environments: big schools, small schools, private, public. What our focuses are: specialty schools, trade schools. And we're all trying to figure out and navigate what is the future, right? Pre-pandemic, putting a hybrid room was just kind of that fancy outlier, right? And
Yeah.
now it's okay. I don't know how I can do education without it. Are you kind of seeing those things, or what are the differences and those challenges that tech managers are coming to you and talking about?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I
I
mean,
know
the
that's
biggest
why I'm the
challenge.
host.
That's what you do, right? It was good. A lot of the stuff that we do when we're looking at different products or different verticals, for example, it doesn't even have to be a product. It could just be trying to understand a vertical better. We leverage a lot of our strong relationships. We have great relationships with schools, and obviously we have a huge outreach program to do surveys and things like that. So one of the things that we learned early on when we started to look at high ed, or higher ed and high flex in particular, was again we saw that there's a lot of this great infrastructure set up in these huge auditorium spaces. And I think the challenge that we saw was that, and we heard that they were very vocal about, was these installations are extremely expensive. We're talking several $100,000 to put in all this equipment, and it's great. It makes sense because you're leveraging this massive room, and this is usually reserved for classes that are going to be huge amounts of people. And what was interesting is they want to figure out, most schools are trying to figure out, how do we make this environment that's very impactful, and how do we apply it to our larger percentage of classrooms, right? Like on a given campus, I think we have the exact numbers in some of our research, but it's well over 90% are fewer than 100 students. In fact, most of them are even fewer than 50 students. And with this like leveraging of high flex and being able to have kids or students log in remotely, or reviewing it after the fact, or even learning at their own pace, um, you can actually expand, what is it, the student enrollment for each class, right? Something that would normally only fit 20, 30 students. I remember my time, which is 100,000 years ago. I had to wake up super early, and it was when you could finally register for a class. And this was a crucial class that you had to have, right? Otherwise, you can't get past, and you're going to lose another quarter or semester. And I remember getting up super early to register for these classes, and then getting on the wait list, and then standing in the back of that class. Like, that stuff's not even a thing anymore. Like, it's amazing to me. But that's just it, is how do you make this new high flex environment, lecture capture, how do you make this affordable to put in
Mm.
all these classrooms? Sure, if you want to invest a couple $100,000 on an auditorium and there's only a handful of those on your campus, that's probably doable. But when you want to make that applicable to over 90% of your classrooms, how do you afford that as a school, as a campus? How do you afford making that? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we heard, and we heard it echoed time and time again, was we need this to be flexible. We need these solutions to be affordable, and we want to be able to kind of bring this up and make it happen instantly. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that was the
love
biggest.
yeah, I love that because you bring up an important point in that scale, right? One of the things that people have listened to me, I have knocked over everybody's head. I never liked the large, if it's a large, lecture hall, it gets all the toys and bells and whistles. But if it's a smaller room, it gets nothing. Well,
Yeah.
that's not fair for the student who's in that. Just because you don't have a major that goes into a large auditorium doesn't mean that your learning experience isn't as important, right? So if we're going to have, so I'm a big proponent of everything everywhere. Every student deserves that. And so when you get to scale, so how does Logitech come and partner with us in order to be able to answer that in the scales? What kind of solutions do we have?
Oh, I mean, well, I don't want to drop products just yet. I know that that's not something we want to do, but we are working on a new product, and I think we have partnered exclusively with Hetma on this to try to make this in the way that is going to help classrooms. But I will start by saying, yeah, I think you touched on something that I wanted to just point out, is you talked about that classroom experience, and that was one of the other crucial things that I missed, is that when we were doing a lot of this research and learning from not just the schools and IT, but also the students and lecturers and teachers. One of the things is about recreating that classroom experience. Again, if you're doing this remotely or you're doing this after the fact, there's a lot that happens in the classroom that's not necessarily going to be captured by a singular camera, right? Or even if you have several cameras, there's a lot of that in-person interaction, or demonstration for that matter, that doesn't necessarily get captured, especially with some of these new advancements with AI tracking or auto tracking or speaker tracking. So it's really that's an important factor that I didn't touch base on, which is how do you recreate that lifelike in
Mhm.
classroom experience for all these students? How do they become an active participant as well? Like how do they ask questions? How do they, so that was really a key part. And so yeah, one of the products we wanted to that we started to work on and are about to release, we've already launched it and announced it, was this Logitech Rally Streamline Kit. And one of the main goals here was one, making it affordable for these small high flex classrooms to try to make that applicable. And two is try to make it simple. All right. Like if
Yeah.
you're trying to put, and that you nailed it, these large auditoriums that have all the bells and whistles, that's great. And they also typically come with a dedicated staff that does all the control, right? They're managing it. They're doing it like a studio executive would, right? How do you do that in a 20 student classroom? And do you have a dedicated person? Not typically. That's putting that burden on the lecturer themselves, and they are really focused on their lecture. They need to engage with the students in front of them and remotely on at the same time. And so, how do you make this? How do you take that burden off them and make it and keep it simple? So that was one of the really key things that we wanted to focus on. So we started doing these like wireless preset buttons. Maybe this is something that can help them stay in the flow and not have to worry about that, not add that cognitive load to say, hey, I've got to go back to this spot and change my camera, or I've got to switch views. I've got to do. So now they can just continue their flow. And if they see a button, they press it. I mean, there's nothing more simple in this world than pressing a button. So if you can make
Mhm.
things as easy as pressing a button, you've solved a lot of the problems, I
Yeah, I love that, and I think you bring up a huge point, and that's why, and I've had opportunities to kind of see some of this stuff ahead of time, and it's just amazing the simplicity. Because again, people know I feel like I'm just preaching here, to people things people know, but technology cannot be a barrier to successful teaching,
think. Yes.
right? And that's where, as technologists, it's easy to want to like, I'm just going to throw junk in this space, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to overdo it. Touch panels that have a billion things, but give me a button, give me an easy button, right?
Yeah.
And have you seen the effectiveness? Do you have real world situations where you've seen this actually be the case?
We do in a couple of things. We've been testing this product out prior to launch, and there were a couple of things that came back that were really amazing. So we had one of the campuses that tried out our product, and I'll try to remember. I think it was Deanza. Their first thing was this took us 15 minutes to set this up, and
Hmm.
that kind of blew our mind. We knew that we were trying to find something that would be, again, because if you think about uh, campuses, it's not always just about a classroom or a fixed solution, right? A lot of times they're leveraging these sort of free spaces and they're changing it, these are flexible rooms where changing furniture around and making it conducive to whatever the class might be. They've got to be able to deploy some of these video solutions in these smaller spaces as well. It may not be something that they can permanently install. So it was great that they were able to set this up and have it up and running in less than 15 minutes. That's a shock to me. I didn't think that that was going to be the case, but that was one of the key things. Another one was another campus that tried the buttons for the first time. They saw it and they loved the idea. It was really about now how does it work with the teachers? That's great from an IT perspective. We like it. It's simple. Did the teachers actually use it? And that was an interesting piece because one of the schools that we talked to early on was they told us that those touch panels, that change camera views or do different things, they were ignored up to 70% of the time. Now, again, that's their stat, not ours. That's not a real stat. That's just what we heard from them. But that was really interesting to know. So it makes sense to me though, because again, as the lecturers trying to engage, it's going to be hard for them to remember that they have to do something. In that case, they're really focused on delivering that like lecture. And to your point, and what you stated so elegantly was technology shouldn't get in the way.
Hmm.
If you're making a product right, they don't even know it exists. That's the real goal. You don't want this thing where the last thing you want is somebody to say, man, this so and so product is such a pain. Yeah, they know your name now, but you don't want them to talk about the negative things. You want it to be something that's just in the background and doing its job and making your job easier. And I think that that's one of the feedback that we got early on with the buttons. They were like, they use it. They got three, I think it was whiteboards up in the front, and I think this was probably math, if my memory serves. And that's what they were doing is they wanted to frame each one of those, and it wasn't just about getting the content that was on the board, because again, cameras at a distance can always be a challenge there. And we make other products that make that simpler too. Scribe is really impactful for things like that. But to recreate that in classroom experience and to make sure that the students that are remote or reviewing this after the fact have an opportunity to see what that lecture is doing, understanding the flow. They had those buttons at each one of the three boards. So as the lecturer walked up board number one and was working on it, they hit that button, it framed them in the board. And then they kind of went back to a podium, and they went to board three. So that feedback that we got right away was they loved it. The teachers used it every time. There was no, miss of it. They weren't forgetting to go this, and all the students remotely were able to see what was going on. So that was a great learning experience for us because it was the idea, the thought behind it, and then the fact that it actually worked and made their life easier was really icing on
Oh,
the cake.
I love that. And sorry, but the first thing that went to my mind when someone was going to this game, I pictured like a Price is Right game. If you go into each of the boards and hitting the buttons.
There you go.
I love that. I love that. Kind of just because again, that simplicity. One of the things that I always say, and this kind of comes from sales days, that if you give people too many options, they pick none. But if you only give them two, they'll use both.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's that same thing of where am I? What are my options? Keep it as or change it to this. Keep it
Yeah.
as it is or change it to this. And I think that's that kind of behind the scenes mentality of that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So now I want to go because you have a unique, I want to say unique title, but it's a unique title and product manager. Okay. And the only reason I say that is on my staff, I have a product manager on my in-house staff. And people always thought, well, what does that mean? What is a product manager, especially in an in-house department, right? So
Right.
talk to me about how your knowledge of product and product, and well, first for people who don't know, tell them what a product manager actually is, because that's not a project manager, that's a product manager, what it is and how that visual behind your role can help influence both Logitech, but also solutions you bring to customers.
Sure. Product managers, and again, most every company in different verticals, organizations, they all have different versions of what a product manager is. But most commonly, a product manager is someone that's looking at a particular area or product in general, right? Sometimes it is singularly a product, and their goal is to understand that market, understand the product needs, from the user standpoint, and it's not just the user, right? In this case, it's the user, it's those that are installing the product or setting it up, depending on the product type. But your job as a product manager is really to understand the market, understand, all the different. It really, I think for me, it's also about customer empathy is a big part of being a product manager.
Mm.
So if most people that have a tech support background often end up in product management, because again, it's really understanding those pain points. So when you've ever experienced an issue with a product that you've had, and you're trying to get it solved, and you reach out to customer support, and that process can be a pain as well. I think that's a key point too, as well as you're looking into different products and different verticals, and you're trying to understand the pains of users and their needs. You want to understand, how would I want this to work, right? But it's
Mm.
not really about you. You're trying to sort of put yourself in a lot of people's shoes to understand from their perspective what pain you're or what problem you're trying to solve. So yeah, that's really the main thing about a product manager, is just delivering products into a market that solve a specific need.
I love that. And I love how you said, kind of that customer user empathy, right? And
Yeah,
understanding that, and again, I think as technologists, it's so easy to jump to the technology, right? And that's what, I mean, that's what you sell, right? If it ain't for the technology, we don't have jobs, right?
right.
But the fact is, it's got to come down to, that customer journey. What are they going through from the time they enter the space? What goals do they want to achieve? And then all the way till the class is done, right? And following that journey. And that's why I love your products. I mean, everyone knows I'm kind of a homer to all your stuff. So,
Oh, thanks.
but let's continue with that. What kind of things, let's say, for example, I were a tech manager. I just came into the role. My school comes to me and says, I need these hybrid rooms. I need these things. We need to do electrical. We need to do this. Where do I start? When I come to you, where are you leading me? Where are we going? How is that journey together so that you can help me find that right solution?
Yeah, I think it always starts with, what is their goal, right? Again,
Hmm.
if it's just like, I need to create a high flex room, right? That's pretty vague. There's always going to be a journey. I think for me, if I get that opportunity where I'm talking to somebody directly and they're saying, "Hey, I need to solve this problem." I would always start with, "Okay, what are the main key things that you're trying to solve? Are you trying to solve video, audio, remote capabilities, recording, lesson planning, that kind of stuff?" Because all of that stuff comes into play, right? I mean, if it's just high flex, obviously audio and video are going to play crucial roles. That needs to be crisp, clean audio and video. Otherwise, everybody remote or whatever's being recorded isn't going to be heard, and that's just a wasted opportunity. But yeah, I think the journey starts there. It starts with understanding what their main needs are and what is it that they're trying to deliver. Are they trying to deliver that like in class experience for everyone, which is really the going theme today? Are they just trying to check a box? I mean, that's always kind of a bummer, but I think reality is they're all trying to solve these different modalities of teaching and trying to make it more applicable for all these different growing needs for students. I mean, students today are so much different than in my day. I mean, I highlighted everything. I circled things. When I took notes, I struggled with hearing what was going on in the lecture because I'm sitting there writing, and it's good because I retained that information, but I missed so much more. Today, students are capable of recording. They're capable of getting an AI companion to listen in and summarize things for them. It's amazing what's available today, and I think that's where the journey goes. Is like, hey, what is it that you're trying to solve? What is it that you're trying to provide all of your students? And that's the journey, right? So figuring out all those things that are already available in most cases, I think that's the biggest thing that IT professionals, they're either aware of it or they haven't been made aware yet that some of the things that they want to solve are already implemented in a lot of these programs. Again,
Yeah.
Zoom and Teams and Meets have so many different things to help summarize meetings and make things like taking notes for you. That's amazing to me. So yeah, I think that's the start. I'm not sure if I answered the question exactly the way you
Exactly.
hoped, but
No, no,
but yeah,
that was
that's
great.
it.
I think you nailed it right along that. And I think it's interesting. You made me think of something else here now. Because kind of mapping through that, finding those pain. What do they want to solve? I love how you led with that. I mean, what do not all hybrid rooms are created equal,
Right.
right? Um, so when you do that, and I come in, where now are people going from here? You again as a product manager, you're tracking a life, kind of the life cycle of something, but also if I'm coming as a tech manager and my boss just told me, okay, we got some money, we're going to go upgrade these, I might not happen to be able to do this again for another 5 years. So, where are you seeing the industry going in 3 to 5 years? Where should I make that investment? And you're welcome to now drop some product lines too. Okay, we can't we got to do this. There's some real SKUs that have to go behind this as well. So, where are you seeing us going in 3 to 5 years? What are the tools that are going to help me get there?
Yeah, that's an awesome question.
Again,
And
that's
again,
why
that's
I'm the
that's
host, right?
that's also my that's another key thing about product managers, right? We're
Yep.
supposed to know these things. So if I don't have a good answer for you, I'm going to be in trouble. No, I think where it's headed and what needs to happen is obviously I think it's really about keeping pace with the student preferences that I was just referring to, right? Like their ability to consume and interact with content is next level at this point. And I think where I see it going personally is, you see, I'm never a big fan of talking about the buzzword of like AI, right? You always hear it. It's kind of overdone. But what's great to me is when you look at some of the things that are extremely impactful for me personally, like when I have to get on very crucial meetings where we're talking about product design, the ME design aspect, all those little things that sometimes are a bit over my head. I totally leverage AI companions to help me summarize things, to catch me up sometimes. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of this stuff. I think for especially high flex environments in higher ed, as we continue to dive down this path, I think we're going to see a lot more of these things to help make this easier, right? And I think that's the biggest piece for me is everything is about bringing in some of this new technology, but making it easier for everybody to consume. Okay. Some of this stuff can be extremely complicated. And if you're going from room to room and each room is different, then you're adding so much more pain to not just the students, but the teachers trying to provide their lectures. Right. So I think a big aspect of what's to come is about keeping this scalable and like kind of on demand, but also consistent from room to room. you want these technologies to kind of work together seamlessly, but you also want them to be very similar. So I don't want to have to relearn everything over and over again. I also don't want to have to reprogram things. I think that's a big thing that we've experienced over the last several years, especially when we talk about these expensive AV installations. When things needed to change, you kind of have to bring in somebody, a third party. You have to reprogram everything, remove everything. This is where I see the industry heading in this particular
Mhm.
area, is not having to come back and reprogram everything. How do we make it in a way that everything can just be modularly changed on the fly from an AV perspective, also from a lecturer perspective, taking into account everything. I mean, even the buttons, right? I mean, take a look at our buttons. One of the things that we wanted to make this easy is we wanted this to be able to be moved, because you
Mhm.
never know if heights change, right? If you've got something that you need to put up high, but then you need to put one down low. I mean, you want to be able to be flexible like that. You don't want to have something that's hardwired in that you're going to have to like redo your entire infrastructure just to make some new adjustments. These
Yeah.
should be seamless. So I think it's taking in that awareness as well. But yeah, I see a huge movement in, and I like to call it more of the AI companion version of it. I see a huge movement there to help students, again, get that content and be able to stay focused on the lecture itself. Again, if my notes are being taken for me, or if this class is being recorded for me, that I can come back and revisit this. It allows me to stay in that moment. One of my biggest like annoyances in life is going somewhere where you're seeing something for the first time and it's really cool, and 10,000 cameras pop up in front of everyone's faces. You're missing the moment. Great. Yeah, you get to see it again digitally, but yeah, that's going to be online for you. Enjoy the moment. And I think lecture
Mm.
capture and enables us and enables students to go in there and actually be engaged and be a part of that classroom experience and not miss things. So I think that's what I see a lot of the future headed towards is, again, simplicity, scalability, and the ability to help both teachers and students and AV professionals, seamlessly put this in room to room and make it consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you were just saying there, and I think one of the kind of takeaways is did we actually get to where we're a plug and play industry now? I mean, we've talked about it for years. I just want you to go in. I want to swap around. I want the right little peripheral device that fits where I am without, you're explaining that. That's like the golden unicorn we've been waiting for here.
And that's what Logitech does as a whole, right? I mean, you most of us know, most people know Logitech is keyboard and mice, and it's true. We make a lot of keyboards and mice, but we make peripherals in general that attach to a computer device, right? So if it's an extension to a computer, we make it, and I think
Hmm.
and that goes well beyond just computers and things. That goes into video conferencing and all these other spaces as well, is that's our goal. We want to make things that are interoperable. We want things to work together seamlessly. I mean, obviously, USB has been a tremendous thing for the last,
Hmm.
I don't know, 30, 40 years or however long. That's made things a little bit easier to be interoperable, but we continue to see things that are still isolated. We need to get away from that. We need to continue to make products that are going to work well with other products. Okay, again, that was part of that whole connected classroom. You brought it up at the beginning of this, and we're kind of talking about it again. Is how do you make these environments seamlessly work together, with everybody's different types of products, because they all help. You want all these products to help the teacher. You don't want them to say, "Hey, you need to only buy us because we do this." So it's yeah, but there's going to be other things that you might miss, and that this manufacturer does really well. So like I said, Zoom and Teams and Meets and all those, the platforms alone, they're the starting point. All right, we're making things to help evolve and make that even better.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that. I love that. And because it's that I keep thinking everything you say makes me just think simple and easy, and it just works. And that's really what we want, especially when it kind of going back, if we're going to keep going full circle to scale, right? I love when you even how you said they were surprised that they got the room up and going in 15 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Now take that by the 100 rooms I have. That's
exactly.
easy, right?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate point. So I now want you to give me, all right,
Oh, okay.
what is the best compliment? What you've obviously had a customer come up to you and go, "Thank you for telling me to go this way. I listened to you, and this was the feedback I got." What's that sparkling moment?
Ah, that's a good one. Honestly, it's not. I wish it was a Rally Streamline Kit's so new. I wish it was about that, but right now it was Reach. Reach was a sort of a different spin on a visualizer, document camera, whatever you want to say, and we've seen it being used in so many different areas. We originally, created that product for to help teachers, and I think it was definitely something that was a bit of a rush during pandemic to even help because again so many teachers were trying to figure this out at home. But it was that product going into a classroom when we were first testing it out, and they looked at it and they said, well, it's a document camera. And I said, it's a little different, it's this, it's that, it does these things. And I kind of explained it, and then we just wanted them to test it out for a while and get some feedback. And this teacher came back and was like, okay, so I came in a little bit like, what does this do differently? And she was so specific about one key point, and it was like a highlight for me career wise. Is she said, I took this camera, I brought it to the back of my classroom where I've never brought my document camera before, and it's my science lab table, and she was specifically showing, I think it was a volume, like different volumes and how that displacement works, like smaller cups, bigger cups, and I think she was showing, and she's like, I've never been able to demonstrate that because kids either have to huddle around my table and they, half of them aren't paying attention or half of them aren't looking. And then if I do a docking camera, it's just straight down, which doesn't give it. So she put the Reach camera, brought it all the way down, put it at an angle because again, this is really about exploring the camera around your content versus moving your content in front of the camera. And she was able to go and just pan across all of these different cylinders and beakers and all the different types of material that was inside of them and show the volume displacement for each one of them. And she's like, it was so impactful and it was so easy to use. And it took me 5 seconds and it just dawned on me that I can do this. She's like, it wasn't something that we talked about, but it was just like, it dawned on me that I could actually show people from this level of perspective that they've never gotten before. And it was huge. I think that was my biggest moment because it was just cool. Because again, that wasn't a design intent that we really had in mind. We definitely wanted to move the camera around 3D objects, but for her to talk about a real life scenario, and it was just really kind of a cool aha moment for all of us. So that was probably one that stands out the most right now.
I love that. I love that. Now, taking kind of that perspective, and let's say, how does something like that now influence something like the Rally Cameras Streamline Kit? Like, what is that now as we kind of move forward into the kind of what you're doing now and what everyone's going to see, Infocom and all that, and be able to order here?
Again, it goes back to the simplicity thing. I hate to keep hammering that point home, but what we took away from Reach was we wanted that product to be easy to use. We didn't want it to be complicated. We didn't want to add software that was going to mean somebody had to learn something new. We didn't want this to be something that they required additional parts and pieces. It was a plug and play type of a scenario. So when we took Streamline Kit, Rally Camera Streamline Kit, same thing applies. We started with how do we make this so that they don't have to add something new, that they don't have to buy some conversion, they don't have to find a way to make it show up as a USB camera. How do we make this simple so that it can be installed quickly and easily? How do we make it so that the lecturers can use it easily without having to learn something new? Um, there's the preset buttons, right? We wanted everything to work seamlessly. We wanted everything to be easy for everyone involved, and we wanted it to make an impact for the students. We figure if we can make this so that it doesn't get in the way, again, going back to that point, the product that you make shouldn't get in the way. It shouldn't be a barrier. So it should just make things easier for you to stay in that flow of teaching. So again, you can focus on what you do best. And again, remote management, we knew that that was going to be crucial too. So we took all that into play and said, how do we make this simple for all three of these main characters, right? The IT installer, the lecturer, and the student. So I think that was the learnings from even that product that we brought into Rally Camera Streamline Kit as well.
I love that. I love that. So I do encourage everybody go reach out to you, reach out to your Logitech rep, and make sure you get your hands on it, give it a try, and all that. So, but now this part of the show, we have to switch to the rapid round here. So this part
Okay.
of the show, there are no right or wrong answers. Unless I have an opinion of my own, in which case you might have a wrong answer, of just some fun things that mean nothing. But everybody, their first time on the show, gets the same first question. Higher ed is about traditions. So, what is your favorite college tradition?
Ooh. I mean, My college traditions are probably all gone now. I mean, again, I went to college so long ago. I don't, I don't even know. Like I said, I had to wake up super early to sign up for classes. Favorite college tradition. Um, I mean, it's just kind of a cheap one, but I mean, March Madness. I mean, let's face it.
That's a good one. See, that's a real good one, and it was a lead into my next question. So
Great.
March Madness.
Okay.
So sports is usually like tailgating or football, something along those lines. So March Madness is good. All right, so who's going to win the tournament? Let's go.
I mean, I can take the cheap route, which is probably Duke. I mean,
That is the correct answer.
yeah.
See
Duke
that
most
we
likely.
were agreeing way too much on this, but
But
I
see, I
think
think I know a little bit about you. You're UCLA, right? I
I'm
think.
at UCLA and I was
I
formed,
said
but
I
I'm
should have said Bruins. I should have gone with
yeah.
your
What are they?
hometown.
60 though? Yeah,
I
that ain't
don't
gonna
even
last
know.
that long. Maybe the women's they might win.
There you go.
So that they might win that one. Even
Let's
though
hope so.
I have USC winning the women's in
There
my
you go.
bracket.
Yeah, they're
So
pretty talented.
but I'm an SC alum. I'm allowed to pick them, right?
There you go.
Even though I work
Yeah,
for
I would
the
probably go with Duke, but that's a little bit. I think they are the front runner, so I mean, that's probably an easy guess.
yeah, but it is the correct answer. So a little fun fact: I always pick Duke to win as long as they're in the tournament. So it doesn't matter. Like that's my go-to. So so there we go. All right. So if I'm not mistaken, you're a Bay Area guy, right?
I am. Yeah.
All right. So you're up there. So when I come up, I'm only down in LA. Where are you taking me to eat? What are we eating? What's the best place there in the Bay Area?
Man, there's so many places. That's the best thing about the Bay Area is food. But and I haven't been over to this place, but it was one of my favorite places to go eat. So depending on, I know two of them are still there, but depending on the type of food you like, is what I would depend on. So if you're a big barbecue person, I would probably go to Smoke and Pig. If
Oh.
not, I would go to, if you wanted something that's got craft cocktails and a little bit different environment, I'd probably go to the Table in Willow Glen. So one of those two places would probably be my go-tos.
Smoking Pig. I've been there before, so that's good. It's down like San Jose area, right?
There's a couple of smoking pigs. I would take you to one in specific. Yeah, that is in San Jose, but it was, I think, the original one. And it's small. It's out of the way. You wouldn't even recognize it. But man, they also have this peanut butter pie thing that I think I probably gained at least 20 pounds on in my early days. So yeah, it's good.
Oh, yeah, I gotta go. See, you stayed away from the traditional, like, you didn't fall for you need clam chowder in the bowl or head to
Well,
Chinatown. You stayed away from the low hanging fruit and went straight to the good food.
yeah, San Francisco is so far away. I mean, it's difficult to get to, but yeah, there's some great food there too. Of course, there's great food everywhere. But I'd probably go to one of those two places just because they were my typical go tos.
All right, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I can do that. All right. So, all right, we're agreeing too much. I had to find something that we have to disagree on, but I don't know if I'm gonna. So now,
How about
last
best barbecue in the world?
best barbecue in the world.
This is my favorite question.
Oh hell. I'm gonna have to go somewhere in Kansas City, even though what yeah, I got to go into Kansas City, and I'm trying to think of where. There's a couple of good ones. Even though I lived in Texas for a while, so everyone that's down in Texas is gonna hate me for saying that. But it's got to be. What is your answer then?
I'm gonna go with a one that might surprise everybody that's outside of the Phoenix area. But Phoenix, Arizona has, in my opinion, the greatest barbecue I've ever had. I've had barbecue everywhere, not everywhere. I can't say everywhere, but in most places, especially the big ones, and it's all good. I mean, you can never go wrong with barbecue. But I want to say it's called Little Miss Barbecue in Phoenix, and it is outstanding. It is the best barbecue I've ever had, hands down.
Oh, and that's our local areas here. Like that's a puddle jump for both of us. So,
If you ever
uh,
find yourself over there, track down. I want to say it's Little Miss Barbecue, and it is amazing. And you got to get there early. It's a line. It's like how Franklin's always was in was that um,
oh,
Austin. So it's like Franklin's in Austin, man. It's a line, and you got to get there early.
oh, now I'm hungry, and it's lunchtime for both of us
It
too.
is. It is.
So we're getting hungry. So all right, next one. I saw you at ISE, and we have Infocom coming up. What is your favorite trade show in our AV industry?
That's the first time I've ever been to ISE, and I've been to most other trade shows. I've got to say, ISE was definitely interesting, but let me think here. Favorite trade show. Um, Honestly, I don't know if it's still the same, but ISTE was my favorite. So it is a K through
Interesting.
12. Not is it? Wait, is that
Mm-hmm.
so?
It's
There's
K through
yeah,
12. Educause is kind of the ISTE version, right? So for
but
higher
but
ed.
I might be mistaken. So I'm trying to remember. I don't want to get them all confused. I used to have to go to them all. It was FETC was in Florida back
Mm-hmm.
and then right after that was it there was one in Austin every year for the longest time.
Oh,
So I think ISTE is it ISTE or is it what's the major one? It's in like June and it's usually it kind of bounces around. There's one major K through 12 trade show. That's why I'm
I
afraid that that's ISTE, but um
I would say that's what it is, but I'm not the K through 12 guy.
I
So
know, and I used to be, but but there's one in Austin, and that was always my favorite. Pre-pandemic, I can't say I haven't been to a lot of these post-pandemic because again, it took them a long time to come back up. And I've been, obviously focused on higher ed lately, but yeah, that one, whatever it was, and I'm gonna remember it later and be mad, but that's the one. It was a K through 12 trade show in Austin because I love that area and yeah, it was just it was good. It was a great one.
all right. One more rapid round question then, since you were in K-12 and now you're serving higher ed a lot. What's what's better about higher ed? What's better about K through 12?
Kate, I mean, I'll tell you my answer on the K through 12 from a product perspective is, um, I think teachers are the unsung heroes, and so the opportunity to help make products to make their life easier and better, and especially to have that impact on students as they continue to go through that process and going through K through 12. I think any opportunity to make products in that and make that life easier is like the most important thing that you could do as a person. So that's the best thing about K through 12 is just getting it's such an influential time and part and key part of so many people's lives. So again, I think that's the biggest part for me. And for higher ed, I think what the coolest thing about higher ed is just the rapid rate at which they continue to adapt new technologies. And again, when we go back to the different modalities of things, I think that's a big thing too. Is I think it's so intriguing to see how that evolution continues to go. So yeah, I think it's just really it's kind of like they're not as afraid to try out something new and push the envelope, and then their requests are so much better too and bigger. They want bigger, greater, grander things. So I love that their challenge is high and it's a difficult challenge and I love it. So I think those are my two favorite things about K through 12 and higher ed.
All right. I love that. Those are good answers. Good answers there. All right. So now the very last rapid round, that's also the same last question ish, but it's not necessarily a question.
All
This
right.
is just 1 minute. You get 1 minute.
Oh,
This is now your show. If you were to have your own podcast, your own show, your own anything, this is it. And I've had people talk about, sports, hobbies, they've done inspiration, whatever, but you get 1 minute to talk about whatever you want. Time starts now.
well, I'm going to go back to the K through 12 teachers. you know how do we get more attention put on K through 12 and education in general? I think the my question and what I would focus a podcast on would be, how do we get the world to recognize that this is such a crucial part of everyone's life, and that we should be investing more money in teachers and we should be investing more money in schools so that kids can continue to get a better education. I think we need to continue to see a bigger and better change. I think the fact that most K through 12 classrooms are still, set up for, that more traditional style with, outdated books and outdated technologies. That there's not enough emphasis there. So I think if I could dedicate time and if I had a dedicated trade show or talk show or podcast, that's what I would focus on is getting that awareness out there and saying, how do we make this better? How do we get teachers to get the tools they need to help educate their students? They shouldn't be doing tech support on products in there. They shouldn't be replacing headsets or things like that. They should be focused on delivering the best education they can to students and helping getting their attention. Goodness, we need to make more products and do more things so that the kids that have this half a second attention span stay focused on their teacher. So that's what I would probably dedicate.
I love it. That is great. That is another good one. And I think it's so important too, because K-12, I mean, that is the feeder to higher ed, right? And I think the more we
It's
can ingrain and this demographic, the students are the ones who are they're not technically challenged. They're the ones that's part of their identity and their DNA. So being able to bring that in and leverage that natural desire for technology to the students and let it help the student and help the teachers be successful, then naturally feeds right into higher ed. Right.
absolutely.
And our long term success. I love it. Now, the single most important question I'm going to ask the whole time, and that's how do people get a hold of you and learn more about Logitech?
I mean, come on. It's pretty easy, but we always say go to logitech.com/education. That's where you're going to learn most about our upcoming products in higher ed and K through 12. And again, all of our contact information is there online for anybody. It's usually first initial, last name, and then sometimes a number one, depending on how long you've been at Logitech. And at logitech.com. So reach out to us at any time. We're loving to hear uh, things that you need, things that we've missed, things that we can do better. We always want to make more products. We want to make better products, and we want to make things that are easy for you. So please go to our website, logitech.com/education.
I love it. I love it. Jay, this was just a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me. I've had such a great conversation here, and everyone, I hope you really got some key takeaways and, understanding this simplicity, right? Not just, I mean, obviously the products, and I encourage you to go check out the Logitech products, but that mentality of making it simple, making everything work for our users is the number one most important thing we can do. So thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I encourage you to like and subscribe at Higher Ed AV and at hetmubcourse.org. And if all opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of any respective institutions, companies, or anyone who would want to sue us. And if you did not like these opinions, there might be better ones next time.